Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is a second in a series of interviews of Vic White House tenants. And this afternoon I'm pleased to introduce Theresa Burke, former president of our Vic White House Tenants Association. So I have a favor to ask before we start. And Barb gave me a few cues about how to behave during an interview. And one of them is sometimes a little drip shows up under my nose. So if that happens, would you give me a clue and just rub your nose?
Or just let you go?
Yeah. And the second thing is, like, sometimes I tend to slouch.
Okay.
So just give a and then I'll try and...
I'll try and remember all that.
Okay. Thank you very much. That would be appreciated. So, Theresa, you've been president of our association for... well, you're on executive for 3 years.
Yes.
And was it 2 years you were president, or 1 year out of that 3?
Well, 1 year plus the other 6 months that we added on when COVID struck. So, yes.
Right,
So,
that's right. You're
yes,
longer
so
term.
longer than 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 years as vice president, and then a year and almost a half as president.
Okay. You were saying?
I was saying, yes. So 3.5 years on the executive. All good.
Oh, right. What do you think was the biggest challenge that you met over time?
Well, you know, I was reflecting back. It's now 4 years since we moved in. 3.5 of those years I spent on the executive.
You didn't waste any time
No,
getting
well,
involved, did you?
well, yes. When you see Susan coming down the hall, you better duck. So I guess for me, getting thrown right in the deep end was one of the biggest challenges. But it didn't take long for me to adapt. I have a background in administration, and also I've been on a couple of volunteer boards. So I thought sooner or later I'm going to get found out. So I may as well take it on, get it over with. What I didn't expect was how much I was going to enjoy it. And that was the biggest surprise of all. I have to say that except for a few rough patches here and there, it was a wonderful experience.
Well, it's kind of a juggling act, isn't it? Because you have pressure from the tenants to represent them on different needs.
Exactly.
And yet at the same time, our mandate on the executive is social and recreational.
Exactly.
So when the garage door goes wonky, or there's another break-in, people come to you and say, hey, do something.
Hey, Theresa. All the other Theresas, what I say.
Theresa without an H, right?
Exactly.
Right. So you were on the condo board before, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so you've had experience in more detail.
Yes.
So do you think that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this tenancy and all this type of thing, and the thing which I mentioned is people feel a great sense of ownership when they live in the White House, and yet we're basically renters and tenants.
Yes.
It's kind of a unique thing because of our inlay of money and so on and so forth. But so how do we want to be involved and yet we want to pull back and let management look after things?
You go for the easy questions first, right? I think it's probably the most difficult juggling act about living here. Because, like you say, we do have somewhat of the financial investment. I think even more than that, though, is that we care about this place, and we want to see it run in the best way possible. And I think we have 107 tenants. I think probably 107 different ideas about how things should take place. So I think the biggest thing is trying to remember where our mandate leaves off and where the management company takes over. It's not always very clear because there are gray areas. I think a classic example was when we had concerns about security and the whole issue of security and locks and cameras and all of that kind of thing is clearly a management issue. But the tenants got together and formed a neighborhood watch group to, bridge the gap until we got more security measures in place. So I think that was a good example of how we can work together with the board and the management company. But those things have to be worked out. And
Well, we're certainly, we see that our tenants are not afraid to step up
right.
to fill up any jobs. Just, even from the gardening to, checking the doors at night and so on and so
Exactly.
forth. People
Exactly.
are very committed
Yes.
to this place. I'm going to change the topic a little bit to our favorite topic, the pandemic.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm wondering, just have you got any coping strategies to words of wisdom for us in that regard?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for doing this. This is really quite a
Oh, yeah.
creative project that you've got going
Nice.
here. I think as winter sets in, I heard a rumor that's going to be soon, we're going to be challenged to, look for ways that we can keep each other's spirits up. And I think it is going to be, quite a challenge. For me, we sort of run the whole gamut. We were rudely called home from our Mexican vacation when the Canadian government issued a travel advisory, so we had to go right into quarantine. And after that, there was a walk down, basically, in our surroundings, and things eased up for a while. Now we seem to be going backwards, and so it's a daily struggle. I think for us, I think the most important thing is to maintain some kind of a routine and to try and set aside some time every day to look after our spiritual and exercise and social and family needs, and so try and always walk that delicate line to try and achieve some kind of balance. The tendency is just to curl up under a blanket and just kind of hope it all goes away. But I think that's probably not very constructive and not very helpful. At least it isn't for me. So just to try and get into a routine and to try and look for ways to challenge myself. We can still read and we can still.
Well, fitness has always been a part of your life and bias and so on. So that's
Exactly.
important, and that's something that we can certainly keep up, either outside or else in our suites. That's for sure.
Yeah, and even during our quarantine, there were endless numbers of YouTube videos that we could access to help with our exercise program, and we've got a few basic weights, and it doesn't take much. You can do the same thing with tin cans and whatever you have around the house. So, but it's just to kind of, like you've done doing this, is just to kind of try and think outside the box a little bit.
So, television's kind of a pretty important part of our day. At least we end the day with an hour and a half anyway. Not too much news, I might add.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not doing the news thing until maybe 3 weeks today. But I'm wondering, do you have any suggestions for series or viewing that maybe people haven't thought of?
Well, I don't know if there are things people haven't thought of, but we watch a lot of Netflix, and always looking for suggestions from people. We just keep our eyes and ears open and look for ways that we can maybe broaden our repertoire a little bit. We do that. I do that with the book club too here, which we are continuing on a kind of a modified way, but it's it's to look to other people who maybe think a little differently than I do, or maybe who have other ideas that I haven't even thought of, and look just for ideas of things that we can watch. And you are a great resource for Netflix.
I was talking with my brother-in-law yesterday, and he said that he is in a conversation group, and I think that happened through the library.
Okay.
I hadn't heard of such a thing, but the library offers all
Okay.
kinds of different services, and it's 20 to 25 people, and then they have a topic and they explore it, and then they break down into groups of 3 and 4, and I think maybe it's done with Zoom,
Okay.
something so they can see who's speaking, and that's an idea that I hadn't heard about, you know.
Being introduced to the wonderful world of Zoom has opened up all kinds of avenues for us, hasn't it?